Hey, how's it going, everyone? I just recorded a response to a question I saw from a friend of mine and fellow Keap certified partner about the expected behavior you might have when you have a scenario like this, where you have some steps published and then a few select steps that are not yet published. When contacts hit those steps, will they skip them? Will they fall out of the campaign? Will they just jump to the next sequence? Like, what exactly will happen in this type of scenario? There is expected behavior, but the responses I saw on this thread were sort of all over the place. So I thought I would do a quick demo here to kind of cover a few different circumstances that you might run into in your building and publishing of campaigns, and hopefully shine a light on stumbling blocks that you might have otherwise tripped over. I love these type of questions. Maybe I'm alone in that, but I have a feeling some of you appreciate these puzzles as well. So I thought I would just do a quick demo here to test some of the different scenarios we're talking about and figure this behavior out together. So one key distinction that I think is worth noticing is that when you publish a campaign, unpublished sequences don't appear as part of the campaign, right? They're not there. However, unpublished, and if you publish a campaign with published items on either side of an unpublished sequence, it appears to be breaking that connection, right? So you can see like those are just not connected. But inside of a sequence, I believe that connection still persists, right? So like this second tag is supposed to be 6 days after they enter the sequence, but you can see it's not in ready mode, so it couldn't be published. But if we take a look inside that sequence, that line is still there. And so if we add Kelly Kapowski to the sequence, she's going to wind up in that first sequence queued up for that first step. So let's do, I forget the name of that sequence, unpublished steps. Okay, so unpublished steps, let's do sequence 1, save. So we should expect Kelly to show up in this sequence and be queued up on this first timer waiting for this step to be here 3 days from now. I think everybody's on the same page for that expected behavior. Sure enough, okay, we're all good there. But here's the twist, right? So if we add, or if we rather modify this so that this second step is not ready, which is sort of what Lisa had in her demo. She had some ready steps and some not ready steps. This is where the confusion starts. Some people have suggested that they'll drop out because this step is not ready. My impression and expectation is that Kelly will appear to be waiting on this timer, right? But this step, which is what that timer is governing, will still be 9 days after the entrance, the start. So 9 days after they enter the sequence. So it's going to visually show us Kelly on this timer. This step will be scheduled, but the date for which it is scheduled should be 9 days after today, since I just added Kelly there. So let's go ahead and confirm that. And it obviously takes just a moment for that data to refresh, but there is Kelly on that third timer. So that visually is confusing because Kelly appears to have passed those first two timers, but has only been in the sequence for a matter of minutes. And then if we refresh the view here for the upcoming sequence items, you can see that step is scheduled for April 14th. And the reason, so April 14th is actually 11 days in the future. But the reason it does that is because today is the 3rd. So 3 days in the future is the 4th, 5th, 6th. That is a Wednesday. 3 more days is the 7th, 8th, 9th. But that's a Saturday. So it's going to wait until Monday the 11th before this step would run. And then we've got 3 more days, the 12th, 13th, 14th, which is Thursday or so. So that's why it's 11 days, but it is using the logic from those timers. And so here's the tricky part. If I republish that first step, right? If we, decide, okay, we do know what we want here. Kelly's going to backtrack, and actually, I'm going to do it in the opposite order here. So let's duplicate this, remove that. If we publish this step first, we're going to see Kelly jump back to this timer with these two steps being scheduled for the 11th and then 14th. Publish. And current view. So Kelly's now waiting there. And then the upcoming items should say tags B and C. Yes, for the 11th and 14th. And then, of course, if we get that third step ready, there we go. Oops, that's not what we need. If we mark this third step as ready, Kelly will jump back to that first timer, and we'll see all three tags in the upcoming sequence steps for her. And that's based on the time that she entered this sequence. So if there had been, if it had been 4 days already, Kelly wouldn't, we should refresh and yeah, she'll jump back. There it is. But if it had been 4 days and then I marked this as ready, she would stay here because that step would have been in her past. So all of these are scheduling based off of the time that she entered this sequence. So that's, and each time you republish, it recalculates based on the current, information and the steps that are ready. Where should these contacts be? So it does get a little complicated when you have, dozens or hundreds of contacts, each having their own start date and like you're adding steps or removing steps. But it should all be predictable behavior. The only way that Kelly would drop out of this sequence would be if the sequence itself was unpublished. So if we, unpublish that and mark this as ready, we should see Kelly disappear from this campaign altogether, because that sequence that she was in is now gone from the campaign publishing tab. And we can refresh here and we'll see Kelly is not active in this campaign any longer, nor is she on the reporting tab here. But if we, let's say that these steps are all in draft mode. Okay, so let's do draft mode here. And these are all deleted. So this is where a contact would skip this sequence, right? So if because all of these are in draft mode, including the timers. So if I add somebody to that first sequence, they're actually going to flow directly into sequence number 2 and queue up for that. This is outdated. Oh, that's actually last 24 hours. So that is correct. But this should say all zeros. Yeah. So if we add somebody to sequence 1, none of the steps in there are ready. So they'll immediately go through into sequence 2 and they'll queue up here. And we can verify that with, let's use Jesse Spano rather than Kelly. So add to unpublished steps, sequence 1, save. We will see this number show number 2 here as Jesse is added. But we're going to see her slip right through into sequence 2 because there were no steps in sequence 1. So there's 2 people who have been in here and then 1 person who has been in here. Not sure why my camera went all blurry on us, but that's kind of fun. And then presently, Jesse is there. And as far as upcoming items go, 3 days in the future on a weekday, tag D is set to be applied. So there are a handful of different scenarios here. Hopefully that clarifies some of the confusion around what behavior we can expect. And my camera is back to not being blurry. What behavior we can expect as we have unpublished steps inside of a sequence or unpublished sequences on the campaign level.